Hey guys, it's Ted with HDpiano. Here's the intro to It Must Have Been Love. 2, 3, 4. And that's the top of the verse. So it keeps going from there in the verse. And we will cover all of the sections of this song throughout this lesson at hdpiano.com. So in a later lesson section, we'll get to the chorus. Etc. So yeah, you may recognize this song. It may be a favorite of yours. I think this song was made most famous by the film Pretty Woman, and it's by Roxette. So we've got a fun kind of 80s, 90s rock ballad ahead of us. And there's a lot of juicy stuff in this piano part. So the trickiest thing about this introduction is going to be the rhythmic coordination between the hands. Really, the first thing I want to look at is this left hand rhythm. This is based on the rhythm that we hear in the bass in the recording. We'd count it out like this. I'm going to be counting out 16th notes, which are dividing each beat into 4. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. So it's on the beat, 2, 3, 4. On the beat, 2. Upbeat, upbeat, on the beat, on the beat. Perhaps that helps. That's pointing out where it's syncopated, meaning it's not on a strong beat, versus where it's on a strong part of the beat. Another thing that might help is to repeat each note for all of the subdivision that it receives. So the first one will get 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one gets 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's another practice tip to get this rhythm. And this is the sort of thing where a metronome can really help you with your practice. You might put a metronome on to represent each of one of those 16th notes. So rather than just representing the beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, you might actually want the metronome to mark out 1 E and 2 E and etc. And that'll help you. So say this was my metronome. You don't have to play it like this, but imagine my right hand is the metronome. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and hearing that subdivision of the beat is really going to help you with this rhythm in your left hand. It's also going to help iron things out with the coordination between hands, because the right hand isn't always going to follow this left hand rhythm, and that's what makes it tricky. So before we move on to the right hand, you've almost got the left hand at this point. If you can play that rhythm between the pinky, finger 5, and thumb, finger 1, then you pretty much have the whole left hand. We're just going to be moving around some different octaves. We start on C for 2 measures, then we'll go to F for 2 measures, then back to C for 2 measures, and back to F for 2 measures. And that's it for the introduction. So that's the left hand. The right hand is pretty simple on its own. Well, let me teach you the right hand by itself. I'll just mark out the bass note changes with one note in the left hand. So start on beat 3. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and then we're going to repeat 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Just an added note here that changes it from the first time through. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then some added things here. 1 and 2 and then we have a pickup at the end of that last measure of the introduction. And that little melodic pickup, which starts on beat 4, 4E and a 1E and a. It's good to include it here, but I treat that as part of the verse. That's when she starts singing. So I really think of that as part of the verse, not part of the introduction. Okay, so take your time with the hands separately. If you're really familiar with the notes in each hand, it's going to make your job easier in this next part. But what we need to do now is put together the rhythms of the two hands. And as I mentioned, the key to this is that subdivision of the beat. If you can count through every single 16th note of every beat, that's going to help your hands fit together. A lot of times our students ask, when they're having trouble coordinating the two hands, they ask whether you're trying to kind of divide your brain or think of each hand as two separate things or think of it as all part of the same thing. I think the answer is mostly the last one, that you're thinking of the two hands as part of the same thing. It's like they're both fitting into the same rhythmic puzzle. And we talk about this idea of a subdivision grid. If you imagine this grid moving forward like little notches in time, if you're counting out these 16th notes to create that grid, every note you play in both your right hand and your left hand is going to fit into that grid. So it's sort of like you have this ultimate reference for how the time is ticking by, and you're fitting both of your hands into that rather than, focusing on the timing of one hand and fitting the other into it or something like that. It's more that you have this constant internal pulse. Okay, so that's why we might want to count through with all these funny syllables I'm about to say. So let's start at the beginning, and I'm going to count through all these 16th notes. Here we go. 3E and 4E and 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1, 2E and 3E and 4E and 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1. I'll pause there because that's one of the trickier rhythms we get, is that the right hand is going to be coming in on beat 3, which isn't where any of the left hand notes fall. Check it out, much slower. 1E and 2E and 3E and 4. So with something like that, it can really help to figure out where the hands playing together, which they do at the start of the measure, and they do on the last note of the measure, and then figure out where they're playing separately and how they line up. So, right, you might even just take those 4 notes by themselves and practice playing them in that order. And then maybe add 1 note onto the end there, right? You can kind of work backwards or work forwards to tack on notes until you have the coordination of this whole measure and get it to where it feels totally thoughtless and easy. All right, so same rhythm in this next measure. 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1. This is all the same as the beginning. But here we have that right hand coming in on beat 3 again, because we have this added note in the right hand. So listen to how this sounds. 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1. What's nice is that we've really only been using one tricky coordination so far. It's that same coordination over and over again. It's the right hand playing on beats 3 and 4 against that left hand bass line. So if you get it with any of these measures where it's happening, it's going to make it a lot easier to play all the other measures where that same rhythm happens. So going on from there, we're almost at the end of the introduction now. 1E and 2E, and here's it again. I left off my counting to say here it is again, so I'm going to give it to you one more time with the counting. 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and in this last measure we get a new coordination. You're going to need to spend some extra time on this one too. It goes 1E and 2 E and 3 E and pick up into the first verse. Okay, so that's different. The right hand now is playing 1 and then 2 and that also doesn't quite line up with the left hand. It goes 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and. So it's this business of the right hand coming in on the G before the left hand comes in on its pickup on the low F. That's tricky, and that was hard for me after I made this arrangement to get that coordination down. All right, so take your time with this. You're going to want to count it really, really slowly. Don't be afraid to use the metronome to help you with those subdivisions of the beat, and you can put the metronome even quite slow for those 16th notes. Don't be afraid of something like 50 BPM on the metronome representing a 16th note. It's kind of unbelievably slow, right? Because what is that? That's 12 and a half beats per minute for the actual beat. That's extremely, extremely slow. But guess what? A lot of times with coordination things like this or rhythm things, the slower, the better. So if you're playing something as slow as 12 and a half beats per minute, well, that's some pretty super-powered practice right there. So that's it for part 1. This was the introduction to It Must Have Been Love by Roxette, and I hope you join me for the rest of the lesson sections. Okay, great job on part 1. If you're on HDpiano.com already, you can click on the next video. If you're not, head on over so you can keep going with this song. If there's another song you want to learn, send us your ideas at requests.hdpiano.com. You can follow us on social media for a heads up about new lessons. And if you're on YouTube, drop us a comment because we love hearing from you. I'm Ted with hdpiano.com. Until next time.